Good morning. My name is Jonathan Adams. I'm the president of Salix Data, and I am thrilled that many of you have taken your evenings, some of you have taken your mornings to spend with us to discuss digital transformation from paper to artificial intelligence. We're going to pack a lot of information in the next 30 minutes where we want to make sure no matter where you're starting from, if you're a small to mid-sized company that still has critical information in paper format, or you're a large multinational company that is looking on how to leverage the most cutting edge technology to gain additional market share, when you leave this presentation, you're going to have a better understanding on how to get tremendous value out of digital transformation. Before I get started, I'd love for Prince Ellis to share a few words with you.
Everybody, my name is Prince Kofi Ellis from Ghana. I left Ghana when I was much younger, came to the US to finish my education. I'm currently a professor at a university here in the US. I am one of the team members for Select Data Ghana, and we are very glad that Select Data Ghana is on the ground. Select, I've known the company for many years now in the US. They do great work. I know that the services that we provide would benefit a lot of organizations from small, medium to large scale in Ghana. So again, it's good to be talking to you, and you are going to be seeing me on the ground in Ghana soon. All right, medase. So yebakaseche. Bye-bye.
Before we get started, I want to give you a little background on Salix Data. We've been in business for over 20 years, and we've had the blessing to work with over 2,500 clients, including some of the top companies, healthcare providers, and law firms in the world. And we help those customers manage their data more effectively in three core ways. The first is through workflow automation, where we help both optimize and secure the way that data and documents flow through their organization. Second, through business process outsourcing, where we help not only reduce the cost associated with the creation of data, but we also improve the timeliness and quality of that data. And then third, litigation support, where we help law firms and corporate legal departments manage the complex data that's involved in modern day litigation. We have a global footprint that includes 2 operations in Africa, 3 in India, and then our headquarters here in the United States. There's nothing that will be like more than developing long-term partnerships with our clients where we help them become more efficient and allow them to leverage their data more effectively. And the way we do that is through our team that consists of over 50 engineers, architects, data scientists, project managers, and we work with some of the most advanced technologies available, including AI, business intelligence, data analytics, RPA, as well as less cutting-edge technologies like scanning and outsourcing of data entry. And so over the last 20 years, we've helped organizations of all sizes and industries leverage digital transformation to drive a meaningful return on investment. And when people talk about digital transformation, it can mean lots of different things to different people. And so for the purpose of our discussion, we're defining digital transformation as the process of using digital technologies to create new or modify existing business processes, culture, and customer experiences to meet changing business and market requirements. If you think about digital transformation as allowing you to empower your employees, engage your customers, optimize your operations, and transform your products, that's really what we're going to be discussing today. And so it might be helpful to walk through the history of Salix, how it started, how it's grown over the years, because I think it paints a really interesting picture of what digital transformation can look like. From the very basic of moving from paper to scanned image, to the most advanced automation and machine learning technologies available. When Salix started in 1999, we started as a scanning and BPO organization where we would scan images and make them available to our team in India that would perform data entry services. I remember vividly our very first customer was a collection agency that handled bounce checks. And I thought it was interesting because it was last week that I had to explain to my 12-year-old son what a check was. And so, but 20 plus years ago, checks were prevalent, and managing bounce checks for retailers was big business. And so this collection agency had had won a large account. For those of you that remember Blockbuster Video, at the time it was heralded as an enormous success. And if there's ever an example of an organization not leveraging a digital transformation and seeing the impact, the catastrophic impact of not being able to pivot quickly based on your competition, it would be Blockbuster. Because shortly after, a startup company that allowed for mail delivered videos, and then eventually a streaming service called Netflix, ended up dominating what was one of the most established organizations in the world. And so I think it's really interesting to think of the example of Blockbuster. But as we continue with the story, this collection agency had gotten very aggressive with the pricing to win the Blockbuster business. And so when we called them and said that we could help them save 30 to 40% on their processing by scanning the checks and then securely providing them to our team in India so that they could perform data entry from those checks. And I still remember that there were 27 fields that existed on a bounce check. And so we would enter that information, provide that data back to our client. They would then use that information to initiate phone calls and mail letters to the debtors. And so what ended up happening was we weren't totally forthright with them initially, because we told them they would save 30 or 40%. They actually saved 80%. And so it allowed for them to be able to be more competitive in the marketplace. And they grew dramatically because no one else could match the price point that they were offering. They grew so quickly that they quickly were identified as an acquisition target for a larger organization, which purchased them. And then they brought us in to be able to help optimize their organization and leverage outsourcing and scanning. And then that organization was eventually purchased by Intuit, which is the maker of QuickBooks, as well as other prevalent software. And so, and then we were managing all of the bounce checks for Intuit nationally. And so you can see how that even within providing basic scanning and BPO services, that organizations were able to experience a significant digital transformation. From there, we started talking to larger companies like Cintas, Rolls-Royce, Northwestern Mutual, that weren't interested in outsourcing, but they were interested in document management systems. And so we would scan their old documents and then upload them into a document management system that we helped design and implement. And that would allow for their internal resources to have immediate access to all of the files that were available within the organization, where before there would literally be file rooms where they had to access that data. And if somebody else had the information, they wouldn't, at their desk, they wouldn't have access to it until they returned it. And so it provided tremendous functionality and flexibility, but it also had some limitations. And so organizations started saying, you're doing a great job with all the images, but what about all the emails, Word documents, all this electronic content? Can you help us manage that more effectively? And so we built out content management systems, and that evolved into where organizations said, you're doing a great job there, but we really want to get rid of paper from the very beginning of processes and automate as documents come in, how they get delivered and distributed to the appropriate people, and how we're able to track efficiency and ensure that we're delivering the highest level of quality, both to our internal customers and to their external customers. And so we started building out workflow solutions that included app development so that people could leverage either computer program, their computer or their phone, to be able to submit documents or critical data instead of having to fax or mail in forms or information. And so you can imagine the impact that that had on organizations where they didn't have to wait days or even weeks to receive information from their clients, but their clients in the palm of their hand would have the ability to interact and provide critical information when that need arose. And I still remember on the app development side, there was an organization that managed the crews that were on barges. And so it was the people that were managing those crews were often didn't have more than an 8th grade education. And so the idea of putting a computer in front of these people and asking them to have a keyboard and mouse and interact with a computer system so that the headquarters could receive more real-time data just wasn't feasible. And so what we ended up doing was building, we did an assessment and found that 87% of those non-sophisticated users had smartphones. And so we developed an app that allowed for them to use their touch screen on their smartphone to submit the critical data that the headquarters needed to be able to provide the appropriate reporting to their client base. And so then we started talking to organizations that needed more advanced technologies like artificial intelligence and business intelligence and analytics. Now that we were helping customers collect all of this data, they wanted to be able to leverage that data more effectively than they had before. And so we started implementing solutions around AI and BI and RPA. And I'll speak to some of those examples shortly. And then about 12 years ago, there was a major push in the United States around electronic medical records. And so we helped lots of organizations, hospitals, and healthcare providers make that transformation from when they were accustomed to having a clipboard and physical charts in front of them when they were with their patients to now moving to having iPads or laptops. And so we helped convert that data, the old paper data, but we also helped train and develop the technologies for electronic medical records. One example thing that I think is important and probably a differentiator between Salix and some other people in this space is that we don't believe that automation for automation's sake is the right answer for every process and every organization. And a perfect example is with one of the hospitals that we worked with on electronic medical records. They called and said that they had several physicians that were reaching retirement age, and they didn't want to make the transition if they only had a year or 2 years left. They didn't want to transition to this electronic format. They wanted to continue to do things the way that they'd been doing it for the past 30 years. And so what we ended up doing was building a system where they could have the same form when they were interacting with their patient that they had used their entire career. They would fill out that form as they walked out of the exam room. There would be a fax machine, and they would put the paper in the fax machine, hit redial, and that would actually immediately go electronically to our physician in India that would take the information from that and translate it into the EMR. So by the time the patient left their exam room and got to the front desk to check out, all the information had been entered into the EMR system. And so even though it was manual, the speed at which we were able and the accuracy at which we were able to transition it made it a viable solution. Now, there were several physicians that weren't happy that the older physicians were getting this additional support, and they felt like they were unnecessarily paying for them for additional services that weren't necessary or critical. But we were actually able to show the hospital leadership how that these older physicians were actually seeing more patients and had better customer support scores than the physicians that had the computers in front of them when they were seeing patients. And so it was actually it was driving more revenue, not less revenue, by them doing the manual process and then having our offshore team help support them. And then we purchased a litigation support company in 2007. And the reason for that was in 2006, the federal rules of civil procedure were amended, which basically said no longer are just paper files discoverable in the litigation, but any electronic information is discoverable. And we realized that we were helping large companies identify ways to store and optimize all of that critical data, and that the other organizations that were in that litigation support space were really copy centers that started doing scanning, but they didn't have the technical girth to manage complex e-discovery matters. And so we purchased a litigation support company in 2007, really focused around that e-discovery offering, electronic discovery offering. And a key component of that is we have a forensics team that will forensically collect data from servers, laptops, cloud instances, cell phones, and then be able to testify in court to the authenticity of that data. So they're able to find deleted information and those sorts of things. And so when probably 10 years ago, we started getting calls from clients saying they thought they had a data breach, and could our forensics team come in and forensically identify how they got in and what they got access to? Because if they could, our clients could prove that the attacker didn't get access to client data, then it limited their exposure to have to notify all of their customer base. And so our team would do that, and they'd write up a little report that said, here's some things that you might want to do to better secure your infrastructure. And so then customers started to call and say, we think your recommendations were spot on, but unfortunately our IT staff is either overwhelmed or they just don't have the expertise. Can you help us manage that security piece more effectively? And so that's when we built out a cybersecurity offering, which has allowed for us to be able to help support customers, and as we implement other solutions around AI and BI and RPA, our team's full understanding of, from the very beginning of development of or creation of data, if it's scanning or pulling data in from apps or web interfaces, all the way through the systems that data could touch, and then the end result of being able to leverage that data from an analytics and an AI and BI standpoint. Us being able to look at all of those processes that we offer through the lens of security has driven significant value for our clients. And so hopefully that digital transformation journey of our organization can help you see how that even if you're in paper, digital transformation can drive new business opportunities, new revenue opportunities, new cost savings opportunities, all the way through to the cybersecurity offering, where we're able to ensure that you're effectively protecting your critical information and your client's critical information. And so now I want to talk about a few more examples of digital transformation for clients. And so one example is we work with a large insurance company that's grown through acquisition. And so they've made 7 acquisitions, and because of the cost of combining all 7 systems, they've decided to keep the 7 existing processing systems for each of the previous insurance companies. And so just to train a customer service rep to do a basic address change, it would take up 2 weeks worth of training, because they'd have to train them on all 7 systems and ensure that they didn't forget to go to a certain tab or check a certain checkbox in each individual application. And so what we did was we came in and we built them a basic interface where when a client called and they had an address change request, they would give them the policy number, and that policy number determined which of the 7 systems had to be updated. And then they would enter in the other information about the address change that needed to happen. They would hit submit. Our robotic process automation, RPA bot, would grab that data based on the policy number, know which system to go to, and in the background, while the customer service rep is able to interact with the customer, talk to them about other services that are available, and build better rapport, the bot is in the background updating the address change. And the beauty of it is it's faster than if a human was doing it, and there's never a mistake because the bot follows that process perfectly every time. When you think about digital transformation, even in the automotive industry, recently we helped a organization that wanted to build a self-service portal that wanted to be able to sell cars, particularly used cars, without having the customer to have any direct interaction with a human. So they wanted them to be able to go through the entire car buying process, fill out all the paperwork without having to have any interaction with a person. And so when you think about the historic days of the idea of the used car salesman, and now fast forwarding to where somebody could actually buy a vehicle and have the vehicle delivered without any interaction with a human, it's truly extraordinary. And then when you think about education, the ability to leverage your mobile device. When I was in college, we had a college ID, which was like a credit card, and that college ID, that was digital transformation at the time, where previously people would have cash or credit card, and when they went to the dining hall or when they went to buy books or to do whatever process, they would have to pay independently. Now all that is tied in, not just with their ID card, but it's actually a mobile device. So if you want to be able to buy something, if you want to be able to enter your a dorm room, it's no longer a key that you get into your dorm room. You can actually access your dorm using an app on your cell phone. And so that shows how even within education, they're looking at even the payment process and accessing your room differently. And then when you think about banking and the security component of banking, the steps that banks have gone through to ensure that the right information is going to the right person and that they're protecting their core operating systems from attackers, it's extraordinary the lengths that banks have to go to protect that data. And so we've helped from a monitoring standpoint as well as a consulting standpoint to provide feedback to the financial services industry. And then when you think about even something as basic as heating and air conditioning companies, we worked with an organization that wanted to transition from, they felt like there was a huge opportunity in being able to provide parts online. So for other HVAC companies or for do-it-yourselfers that wanted to fix things at home or wanted to have filters available. And so they built out their web-based retail business is now larger than their HVAC company, which was very much a regional business. And now this is a national business for them on selling parts and supplies. There's a manufacturing organization that handles hydraulics and helping move fluids within the manufacturing space. And they've built some IoT technology that's really compelling, where that it will show or communicate through wireless transmissions if there is a change of capacity or flow of different fluids or systems within a major manufacturing plant. And so it can tell you before something fails that there's an issue, which is a huge advantage in the manufacturing space. And so you think about what that means of proactive maintenance instead of reactive maintenance, and unexpectedly taking down a major manufacturing division so that while things were retooled, well, now that can all be done as part of routine maintenance. And then something that Salix has been working on, and we feel like we're maybe 18 to 24 months away, is leveraging the ability for when you walk into your office without interacting with your keyboard, you being able to simply say, I'd like to pull, there'd be a digital assistant similar to an Alexa or one of these other tools that's available, and you would speak what you wanted that digital assistant, the action for them to perform. So you could say, I want to compare the results of this division from last quarter to the same quarter last year, and I want you to take that data, put it into a line graph, and use these colors and insert it into a PowerPoint presentation. And without touching a keyboard, the assistant would go in and perform all of those functions because of the advances that we're seeing in natural language processing. And so those are just some examples of how different industries are leveraging digital transformation. And so when you think about how to successfully, what successful digital transformation looks like, because Forbes magazine presented data that said that 84% of digital transformation initiatives fail. And we feel very strongly on why so many of those fail. So many organizations are trying to, and to steal an investment term, time the market, where they're trying to figure out before their customers have even thought of it, what is the future going to look like? And that is a great exercise, but it's also really risky and a huge investment if you're wrong. And so that's why we think that 84% number is so high. And so we believe these are some core principles that have allowed for us to be able to ensure that our clients are actually experiencing a true return on investment as they interact with us. And so the first item is the starting point's critical. And so you want to look for areas of your organization where there's a major issue with a team or department, and that team or department wants help. And so, because what we've seen is we've implemented some tremendous technologies over the years, but if the team that if this technology is being forced upon them, they can do lots of things to be able to try to torpedo that and not have to change. And so we find that especially when starting a digital transformation initiative, before others have seen the success of it, that starting with a department that has the need but also has the desire to change is a great starting point. And then also making sure that there is a clear return on investment. And that doesn't always have to be financial. It can be tied to quality. It could be tied to speed, which in both of those end up having a huge impact on financial returns as well. And then the second stage after thinking through the starting point is doing a true workflow assessment. And so typically organizations leverage us to come in and do that assessment. For some reason, Oftentimes, folks will share more honestly with us than they do if there's an internal resource that's doing an assessment. And so what we do as part of that assessment is we will reach out to the business leaders and talk to them about their understanding of the process. We'll talk to the supervisors about their understanding of the process, and we'll also speak to the end users. And the reality is there is always a gap between what leadership thinks the process is or should be and what's actually happening for the end users. And so then what will happen is we'll then uh, identify what that process is, detail it, and then come back with recommendation and a demonstration of how to optimize that process. And so, unfortunately, we're running out of time. Otherwise, I'd love to show some examples of robotic process automation and what that looks like. But if you have any interest, please let us know and be happy to share a link with you. And then make sure that you're having strategy drive the decisions, not specific software. And so we find that people get enamored with a specific software product or a demo that was provided, but they've never seen it in their environment. They've never, they're buying it based on what we refer to as bells and whistles and not the real core functionality that's needed for the organization. And so we would just highly recommend that strategy is determined and that the software is chosen based on the strategy, not based on how good of a demo that they do. And then ensure that there's an ROI. And that's really when we see folks that don't have a clear direction on how they're going to turn this digital transformation into direct benefit to the organization is where failure comes. And so we're so grateful for your time and would welcome any questions or follow-up that might be helpful. Have a great afternoon, great evening. Bye-bye.